All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Patel. I'm the founder of 2400 Expert. And in this video, I'm going to cover a little bit of information about our Seattle SAT prep courses. So to start off, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Um, Back when I was in high school, I started out with an average SAT score. And after a lot of studying, hundreds of hours, I was able to raise my score to a perfect SAT, which is something that about 0.02% of students achieve. And because of my SAT score, my life completely changed. I received $250,000 in scholarships. I received admission into prestigious universities, and I even got to meet the President of the United States. Since then, I went on to write some number one best-selling SAT and ACT books, and I'm also currently an MD and MBA student at both Yale and USC. But most importantly, I started 2400 Expert, in which we teach 6-week SAT prep classes to help students improve their own scores and basically prepare for the SAT the way that I did in high school. So there's 100 strategies that we teach students and thousands of problems that we go over with them over a 6-week period where students meet with instructors twice a week and a proctor once a week for testing. And so it's 10 hours a week for 6 weeks for a total of 60 hours with homework in between. So it's a complete prep package to get students ready for the SAT. And we've been very fortunate to have some awesome results. Many of our students get into very prestigious universities. You think Harvard, Stanford, Yale. They win millions in college scholarships, and some have even gotten perfect SAT scores themselves. In fact, our average SAT score improvement in our classes is 368 points. So I'll start off by just answering probably the most commonly asked question we get from parents at 2400 Expert, which is, when should my child start studying for the SAT? And the answer to this question, I believe, is really as soon as possible. So I know a lot of people wait until spring of their junior year or even fall of their senior year. And if you wait this long, some people can do it, but oftentimes, these are some of the busiest times of high school. If you think spring of your junior year is just full of AP exams and finals, fall of your senior year is full of college applications. And so what happens is when students try to also study for the SAT during those times, they don't have enough time to dedicate towards preparation. They don't raise their score enough. They don't get into the colleges they want. They don't get the scholarships they deserve. And so my advice is to start earlier if possible. I personally started as a sophomore in high school studying for the SAT. And what we've noticed over the years at 2400 Expert is that students who start as freshmen or sophomores in our classes often end up getting the highest SAT scores. They get into the best universities and they win the most scholarships. In addition, the benefits of starting early include doing better not only in your high school math and English classes, but also on other standardized exams. We really teach you how to do well, not just on the SAT, but other standardized exams such as the ACT, AP exams, SAT subject exams, PSAT, etc. And so I really think there's a huge, huge benefit to starting your SAT prep journey earlier rather than later. So specifically to our Seattle SAT prep courses, our location is in Bellevue. It's about a mile from the T-Mobile headquarters. It's a beautiful office location. It's called the Premier Business Center. And we work out of a conference room there that seats about 12 students. So it's a small class size where you're interacting with your instructor and get a lot of one-on-one time. Your instructor is awesome. She's Tracy Thornton. She's has her PhD. She scored in the 99th percentile herself on SAT. She loves teaching students. So you guys are really, really lucky to work with her in Seattle. And then a couple things I want to cover related to the SAT that a lot of people overlook. One is the PSAT. So a lot of people think the PSAT isn't that important. It just sounds like it's just a practice SAT, right? But the PSAT is tremendously important. You only have one shot to take the PSAT, and that's in October of your junior year. If you take it as a freshman or sophomore, that's as practice and it doesn't count. What I mean by it doesn't count towards qualifying for national merit. So the PSAT is the only test by which you can be designated a National Merit Scholar. And National Merit Scholar is not only an awesome accolade to have on your college application, but it's also a $2,500 scholarship that you can use to any university of your choosing. But most importantly, about 50 to 100 universities across the nation actually give National Merit Scholars a half tuition or full tuition scholarship just because they're National Merit Scholars. So if you think about that, like for example, where I went at USC, they give National Merit Scholars a half tuition scholarship automatically. Half tuition at USC is $25,000 a year times 4 years. So that's $100,000 for scoring high on this one PSAT test. And most people have no idea that that's even possible, right? So how high do you need to score on the PSAT? Well, it really depends on how well students in your state do on the PSAT that year. So it changes every year, but in general, more academically competitive states will have higher PSAT scores, and less academically competitive states will have lower PSAT scores. So for Washington in particular, it's slightly more competitive than most states. So your PSAT cutoff for national merit, I estimate, will be around 1390 out of 1520. So that's out of 1520. The PSAT previously was out of 240 points. It's now at a 1520. And so it's not necessary to study for the PSAT separately than the SAT. What I always tell students is if you just study for the SAT, you'll be over prepared for the PSAT. That's because the PSAT is really just an easier version of the SAT, right? So the PSAT has easier math, it's shorter, there's no essay. And so just prepare for the SAT and you'll be ready for the PSAT. Second thing I want to cover is scholarships. So everyone knows a high SAT score can get you into a great college. But what everyone doesn't realize is that a high SAT score can also get you a lot of scholarships. And so I'm speaking from experience here. I applied for 100 scholarships my senior year of high school. I ended up winning 20 of them, and that amounted to $250,000 from companies like Coca-Cola, Toyota, McDonald's, Best Buy, and Lowe's. And what I realized after I went through the entire application process and all that was that the secret to winning scholarships was really applying to local scholarships, right? So most people apply to scholarships in the wrong way. They go on these big scholarship search engines like FastWeb, and they start applying for every big scholarship that they see. The problem is most of these scholarships are open to everyone across the nation, so it's really hard to win. If you focus on scholarships that are only open to students in your city or state, the applicant pool is much smaller, right? If you think about it, if you apply to a scholarship that's only open to students in your state, you at least you reduce the applicant pool by at least 50 times, right? And so that's what I suggest for students is to apply for local scholarships. And one great resource I found specifically for Seattle students is the Seattle Foundation. Now, this is a foundation that disperses millions of dollars in scholarships specifically to Seattle students. So these are going to be ones that you have a high chance of winning. So definitely check out that resource. And then finally, why should you take our Seattle SAT prep course coming up in January and February rather than maybe down the line later? Well, I really believe that this is the case because I want everyone to take advantage of the curve on the first administration of the new SAT in March of 2016. What I mean by this is I believe the curve is going to be better on this first administration than ever before. The reason for that is because most students are not going to be ready for the new SAT. There's not a lot of prep materials out. There's not a lot of practice questions out. But there are a few students that will be ready, and those students that will be ready are going to score very high on the curve comparatively to everyone else. And so those students that are going to be ready are often going to be the ones who take our courses, because in our 6-week course, we're going to give you over 1,000 questions specifically for the new SAT, over 100 strategies specifically for the new SAT. So you're going to be super ready for the new SAT, whereas most people are not. And there's actually precedent for what I'm saying. Back when I was in high school and the SAT changed from 1,600 to 2,400, I remember many students at my high school who took that first administration of the 2,400 version of the exam scored super high. There was a student who got 2,400, 2,390, 2,380, 2,320, 2,280. And a lot of these high scores came in because these students were prepared for the first administration of the exam, whereas most other students were not. And so you should also be prepared for this first administration of the new SAT in March, whereas most students will not be. And in addition, by taking your SAT in March, it really spreads out your testing nicely. You take your SAT in March, you take your AP exams in May, and you take your finals in June. And that allows you to put enough preparation, time, and effort into each of your tests rather than trying to cram the SAT in when you are in May or June, which is what most students typically do. And that often results in burnout and not a lot of dedication to any of the tests. So hopefully we see you in one of our Seattle SAT prep courses very soon. And I wish you all the best of luck with your SAT, college, and scholarship goals. All right, thanks.